court is now in session for... How do I say that?
Maki Tobai, Your Honor. The pixie of the arpeggio.
Right, his trial. Court is in session.
The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution is A-OK, Judge.
Very well, Prosecutor Gavin.
Ah, my opening statement, yeah?
No, actually, there was something else I wanted to ask you about.
Yes?
Say you're going to visit someone in the hospital with an incurable disease. What do you say to them? I mean, you wouldn't say, get well soon, right? You'd only be kicking them when they're down. What are you talking about? Actually, I'm going to visit someone who is terminally ill. Right after this trial, the Chief Justice's son. The Chief Justice? His son is afflicted with the most terrible disease. He doesn't have long, it seems. Ah. So I thought I'd go pay him a visit. I thought saying something moving might be the order of the day.
Why don't grown-ups ever just say what's on their mind instead of pretending? She's looking at me with something like disgust.
Hey, what are you looking at me like that for? In any case, I'm a bit busy today, so let's wrap this up quickly. Prosecutor Gavin, your opening statement, briefly.
You're in luck, Air Judge. I believe you'll be going on your hospital visit sooner than you think. First, to review the victim in this case. Romain Latouche, age 35. The global manager for diva songstress Lamuro. The cause of death, blood loss due to being shot by a large caliber revolver. This report has all the details.
The court accepts this into evidence. 45 caliber, that's quite large, isn't it? A direct hit from that could knock a man off his feet.
However, the bullet struck him in the shoulder. The damage to the body was slight. Death was not immediate. Sadly, his blood loss was such that he could not be saved.
I suppose the victim's condition could have been much worse, considering.
2 shots were fired. One shot missed, the other penetrated and passed through the victim's shoulder. Both bullets were found in the wall at the scene. Observe the diagram. This is where the bullets hit.
I see. The court accepts this evidence. If we're talking about a 45 caliber revolver, we must assume that the killer was adept at the weapon's use.
Really? Yeah, apparently weapons that size have a powerful kickback. If, say, the judge tried to fire one, it'd break every bone in his body.
The defense will take more care in choosing examples.
As I was saying, the victim was shot backstage in a dressing room. This dressing room has only one entrance, this door.
That does seem to be the case, yes.
However, there were witnesses who heard the gunshots. He's talking about you and Emma, huh? Yet when the witnesses entered the room, it was empty, save for the victim's body, of course.
But that's impossible.
Exactly. This murder was impossible. For all but one person.
One person?
That is, of course, the defendant, Maki Tobai.
Only this defendant could have committed the crime. But how?
It's quite simple. The circumstances of the crime scene make it clear.
Very well. I assume you have testimony to back up this claim. Please show the witness to the stand.
Your name and profession, please. Emma Sky. I'm a detective for the police department. I was on security detail at the concert forum that night. Emma seems tired somehow.
Security at the concert, you say?
Some security I was. Couldn't even stop a murder.
Now, don't blame yourself. Things like this happen. I've made even bigger mistakes in my career, you know.
I'm sure that makes her feel much better. I want to hear about these bigger mistakes. In any case, because you were on security detail, the crime was quickly discovered. And we were able to identify the killer. You may give the court your testimony if you would. Describe the circumstances of that day and your discovery of the crime, please. All right. The night of the murder, I was on security backstage at Prosecutor Gavin's request. Only people involved with the concert in some way were allowed backstage. At the beginning of the third set, I heard shots. I went into the room filled with blaring rock music and found the body.
I examined the scene and determined that only the defendant could have done it. It was lucky that a detective was the first on the scene. But that door was the only way out of the room, right? Yeah, pretty much. Then I don't get it. How can they say that Monkey did it? Looks like we need a bit more information. Very well. The defense may begin the cross-examination. The night of the murder was the night of the concert, yes? That's right. What was the detective doing on security detail, might I ask? If it was only a concert. My thoughts exactly. But orders are orders, even when they come from rock gods. Prosecutor Gavin? Yes, allow me to explain. I smelled something that day, you might say. The stench of conspiracy. That day at the concert hall. Conspiracy? Well, isn't it obvious? My keys, that whole morning, no, the whole day was ruined. And it's all because someone stole my keys. I couldn't ride my hog to the show. I couldn't open my guitar case. There he goes again. Isn't it possible to simply misplace them? Misplace them? Misplaced items don't just wander into a murder victim's hand on their own. Watch this? Prosecutor Gavin, if your keys were in the victim's hand, that makes you a prime suspect. Love, slow acting and new. A crocodile is waiting for you. He's singing something. Does everything with this guy have to be so over the top? The killing happened in the middle of my concert. I was like a sailor, adrift on a sea of sound. Anyway, I didn't want anything else stolen. So I put the detective with the most time on their hands on the task. I see. I can accept that. Well, I can't. What do you mean time on their hands? Please, the testimony. Rock? Blaring, yes. When you say rock, are you referring perhaps to this rock and roll music that's so popular these days? That's right. When we went into the dressing room, music was blaring over the speaker on the wall. They piped sound from the stage into the backstage through speakers. That way people in the back can hear when they're supposed to be on stage. Did it have to be so loud? You don't listen to the Gaviners with your ears. You feel it with your entire body and soul! I always have the backstage monitors at full volume. When we waited in the room, the band was playing Guilty Love, I believe, making it easy to determine the time of the crime. If you could hear that music playing, then everyone on stage for that song has an alibi, including myself. Anyway, I closed out the scene and started my investigation. How could you know something like that? As I said, it was clear from the circumstances. Listen, we know there was only one exit from the room, that door. The small window only opened a tiny crack, and I was standing in front of that door. So, how could the killer have fled the scene? There's only one possibility, the air vent. Ah! Objection! But that air vent was too small. Who could possibly... Exactly. There's certainly no way you could get through, nor me. The only one who could fit through was a child. A child! Remember, access to those rooms was limited. Only those involved with the concert were allowed. And of all of the people involved with the concert, only one is small enough to be considered a child. The defendant. The pixie of the arpeggio flitted up toward the sky and disappeared from the scene of the crime. Objection! But that's just conjecture. Oh, there was no other way out of that room. You were there. You should know, Airforehead. And there is another vital piece of evidence. Evidence? What? Marks were found in the air vent grill. Traces that had recently been opened. Wait, what? And something else was found, quite clearly. The defendant, Maki Dobai's fingerprints.
What? Order. That Ervin was the only way out of the room. The defendant's fingerprints were found on the grill. Well, Airforehead, what fairy tale does this suggest to you? Ugh. Only one could pass through that vent, that doorway to heaven. And that one is our pixie. Why are you looking at me, Apollo? Hey, how is that whooping it up in the audience? So this was his decisive evidence. Quite the decisive indeed. I believe that's enough of that. The prosecution has a rather convincing case. The only way in and out of the crime scene was watched, making the defendant the only one who could possibly leave the scene. Simple and decisive. Ugh. I believe we've heard enough to determine our verdict. Even if I wasn't in a hurry to make a hospital visit. I'm sure the Chief Justice will appreciate the gesture. Unfortunately, we have no direct witnesses. Fortunately, the criminal left decisive evidence for us. That would have to be enough. It can't be over already. Very well. I believe this trial is finished. If the defense has no contradicting evidence, the prosecution has presented our proof, clear and plain. If you have contradicting evidence, it had better be clear and plain. Apollo, they've got us in the ropes already. You better come up with something quick. I know. Think, what can get us out of this? We need evidence or a witness that can prove Maki is innocent beyond a doubt. Without that, Mr. Justice, do you have contradicting proof that can overturn the prosecution's case? If you do, you'd better tell us about it now. This is it, and so soon. If I mess this one up, it's all over. The court wants contradicting proof. Prosecutor Gavin, you claim that there were no witnesses to this crime. Are you absolutely sure? Absolutely. I'd swear it on my career as a prosecutor. And on my million-seller hit song, A Troconine, My Love. There he goes again. That's too bad, because there was a witness. Oh, really now? But how did you come to possess knowledge the prosecution clearly does not? Because I am the only one in the world who knows this. What's going on? I just talked to him and now... He's alive! Mr. Latouche, can you hear me? Cold. So cold. Witness. You're cold. Don't worry. You're going to be fine. Help is on the way. Let's see. Hang in there, Mr. Latouche. Tell me, who is the witness? The witness is Siren. What? The victim said this before he died? Perhaps he did, and perhaps he did not. What do you mean by that? All we know is what Airforehead says he said. It's no testimony, especially since it comes from the defense attorney himself. Objection! But it's the truth. He said it. I even told you about it. But apparently you ignore me completely. It's my policy to fully investigate everything I deem relevant. Clearly this rookie lawyer thinks he can tell me how to do my job. Not enough. Mr. Justice, we need clear contradictory proof from you. This witness of yours, unknown to the prosecution. I hope you're right. Failure carries a stiff penalty. Perhaps a stiffer penalty than usual is called for? There's no backing out now. Let's hear the name of your witness, Mr. Justice. Take that! Lamaror? Recall Mr. Latouche's last words. The witness is Siren. The Siren. Aha, you meant the Siren. That's right, the Siren of the ballad, Lamaror. Lamaror was only on stage for the second set, and she had access to the backstage area. She could have been a witness. I see. Well, Prosecutor Gavin, my claim still stands. There was no witness to this crime. Very well. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth then, shall we? We will now take a break from Detective Emma Sky's cross-examination. Please show Lamaror to the witness stand. Lamaror would say nothing the night of the murder. Not today, though. Today we'll drag that story out of her no matter what it is. It is my distinct honor to welcome the sound of the ballad to our courtroom. You are too kind.
Ah, you can speak English.
Yes, I can. Though I am not very good. There is much I do not know.
You speak so well. Have you spent time here before?
Actually, I do not know how I came by my knowledge of your language, nor where I studied it.
What does she mean she doesn't know?
I, too, thought to call her as a witness, but I did not. I had the reason, of course.
What's that?
Lamiror suffers from amnesia.
Amnesia?
Lamiror is not my true name, yet I remember nothing of the time before I was given it. Nothing of the time before I started singing on stage.
Whoa, she's even more mysterious than I thought.
As a lauded singer, Lamiror, she lives a good life. There are little difficulties for her, thanks to her success. Yet, I did not wish to subject her to unnecessary stress.
I see. I care surprisingly little about people's pasts. You have nothing to fear in this court, Lamiror.
Thank you. If there is something I do not understand, I am being called as a witness. What might I say? No one will tell me anything of what happened. Lamiror, let me be frank. I did not want to ask you up here to testify. Yet that young gentleman with the wide forehead over there was adamant that you stand. Oh my.
Congratulations, Apollo. You're the bad guy. Well, now that you're here, please give us your testimony. If nothing else, the sound of your voice is welcome. Tell us what you saw the night of the crime.
As for what I saw nothing. That night, I was invited to sing on stage, and this I did. I did not return backstage after the second set. Then I was led by the police to Mr. Gavin's dressing room and told to wait there. That was where I learned that something had happened, but I wasn't told of the details.
I must say, you sound wonderful just testifying. I hope he was too distracted to hear what she was actually saying.
There you have it. She saw nothing that night. Now we can only pray that the defense has the sense to admit defeat, and refrain from detaining her here longer than need be.
Wow, you just got battered, Apollo. Way to go. Grr. Very well, Mr. Justice. Keep it short and sweet.
Lamiror wouldn't talk to me the night of the crime. She must know something, and I've got to find out what. I'm sorry, Lamiror, but I'm having trouble believing you. You remember this brooch, do you not? Why, that's Lamiror's. She was wearing it for her song. Care to add that to the testimony, Prosecutor Gavin? What? This brooch was found after the murder took place. At the very scene of the crime. What? Lamiror, how did your brooch get backstage if you did not go back there yourself? And as Prosecutor Gavin has just told us, you had been wearing it during your performance that night.
What is the meaning of this? Lamiror, please explain.
Lamiror? She says, English is quite difficult.
That trick's not going to work here.
Your forehead may be large, but you are a lawyer, truly. But you have missed one important fact.
What now?
In fact, at the time of the incident, I went backstage, but only for a moment. What? Think back to the moment of the crime. You know whereof I speak. Is she really saying all that?
What's she talking about, Apollo?
Right when the incident occurred. Ah! Is she talking about that? Watch this room for me. I have to call for backup. Right, understood. You want me to make sure no one comes in, right? Mr. Latouche, can you hear me? Cold. So cold. Witness. You're cold. Don't worry. You're going to be fine. Help is on the way. The witness is Serenade. Siren? How can a siren witness anything? Yay! Emma! What was that? Who's there? What's wrong? Emma, did you see anyone just now? Huh? No. Could have sworn I heard a door close. I looked into the room. Just a glance, mind you. So this was when your brooch dropped. That explains that. It does. There was no other time I could have dropped it.
But that's ridiculous.
You only looked for an incident, but you dropped your brooch? Air forehead. She has raised a possibility. The only thing that can counter that is evidence.
So she looked in at the crime scene.
Actually, I intended to go into the dressing room. I knew nothing of what had happened, of course. But the moment I opened the door, I heard a horrible voice. Air forehead shouting, who's there, no doubt. A horrible voice indeed. I closed the door immediately.
Well, that explains the brooch. Let's return to your testimony.
That's too convenient. She's hiding something. Lemuror, you did look into the room though, right? Yes. Testify as to what you saw. Very well, though it was only the briefest of glimpses. I saw nothing.
Gotcha!
The late Mr. Luce's body, you say? Yes. You know something more about Mr. Luce's death than you were saying. What? I could see you trying not to remember, but the effort made you swallow. You can't fool my eyes. It is true, it was so terrible after all. Why did Mr. Luce have to be shot?
One moment, Lemuror.
Yes? What was that you just said? Why did Mr. Luce have to be shot? Yes? She was hiding something. I knew it. Lemuror, I'm afraid you haven't realized it, but your words just now contradict your testimony. Eh? How could that be? Take this. Lemuror contradicted her own testimony, and I have the evidence to prove it.
Take that!
Tell me, Lemuror. How did you know he had been shot? Well, Immediately following the incident, a gag order was placed on the scene. This is a document proving that. In your testimony, you told the court, no one told me anything about the incident. Furthermore, you testified that you had seen nothing. Yet you knew that Mr. Luce had been shot. How could you have known? Yuck.
Lemuror, you aren't hiding something from this court, I hope.
That sweet song of hers was sounding a little too sweet. Now I remember. Please, allow me to add to my testimony. Of course. All I want to know is the truth. She was kind of pale, huh? She saw something, I know it. Even the victim said so. I saw bullet holes in the wall and knew Mr. Luce had been shot.
Objection!
Lemuror, they call you the Siren of the Ballad. But lies are hardly becoming of such a creature.
A put-down worthy of our prosecutor, Mr. Justice.
Such put-downs are hardly becoming of you, Apollo. Stop polishing your forehead and start polishing your character, yeah? Come on, can't I be cool for once? Observe the diagram. Lemuror, you looked in from the door for just a moment. Correct? Yes, that is so. There were bullet holes in the room, yes. But they were in the wall the door is on! You see? Assuming you merely glanced into the room, you couldn't have seen those bullet holes. Yeah.
Lemuror,
Yes?
I'm afraid the defense has raised a good point. It appears you have been holding back something.
And I must tell you? I must tell you what it is that I saw.
Yes. The happenings in this trial are being recorded, and I'm certain it will be on the news in Virginia. You understand your reputation is at stake. It falls to you to avoid tarnishing it.
Personally speaking, I still believe that cross-examining her will yield us absolutely nothing.
But she knew how Mr. Latouche died, and he named her as a witness.
You must have seen something, Lamoureux.
Very well. Lamoureux, please continue your testimony.
Very well, I shall. I was on my way from the stage to the backstage exit. There was something like a little window there. That's how I saw it. There were 2 shots. I couldn't do anything to stop it. But it wasn't Maki. It was a grown person. I know it was.
So you did witness the crime. And the killer was a grown person, you say?
This is my first time hearing this, I assure you. Nice play, Forehead.
Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your cross-examination.
Great going, Apollo. You were right about Lamoureux. What's wrong? You don't look too happy.
This whole thing smells fishy. That's what's wrong.
I was up.
A grown person? That's a little vague.
I am sorry. My skill with your language is lacking, I know.
Certainly you can at least see whether the shooter was male or female.
It was a man, a young man.
And you're sure of that?
Yes, his voice was quite clear.
Voice? Looking at this diagram, it seems the dressing room was quite cluttered. It does seem likely that you wouldn't have had a clear view of the shooter.
As a singer, I rely more on my ears than my eyes. When I hear a voice, I do not forget it. That voice was the voice of a man. So you heard a voice, but wait. Couldn't that have been the victim, Mr. Latouche? Absolutely not. Did I not just say that I do not forget a voice? If it was Mr. Latouche who spoke, I would have known.
Indeed.
So you were at the window,
And you heard the shooter's voice, the voice of a young man.
Apollo, this is a good testimony. That proves it wasn't Maki.
Indeed. If this turned out to be true, it would cast this case in a considerably different light. What is the defense's opinion of this testimony?
Though it pains me to say this, there's something about Lamoureux's testimony that rings false. Bravo, Forehead. You're colder than I thought. I'm sure you remember what the problem is as well as I do, Gavin. As has been established, no grown man could pass through that air vent. He couldn't have fled the scene of the crime. But that means Lamoureux has to be lying.
I know, and I know it's bad for our case, but I can't shut my eyes to this.
Believe me, the idea was tempting. It is as Herr Forehead says. Yet, this is not the only contradiction within her testimony.
What next?
What's he talking about? Lamoureux, I understand why you would want to protect Maki. Yet remember, you are the siren of the battle. And lies do not become such a creature.
What does the prosecution mean?
Apollo, what's he talking about? How come no one bats an eye when he says stuff like that? I recall the state of the crime scene quite well. The state of the room? Yes, and when the murder took place, that window was closed. I find it hard to believe you could hear a voice through it. What? But I'm sure. Lamoureux, I have nothing but the highest regard for your musical sense. But my opinion of you as a witness is somewhat lesser.
Objection!
But she's the only eyewitness we have.
Objection!
So you say. And the victim named her the siren as the witness? That's right. That's what Mr. Latouche. We heard your claim. We even entertained the possibility. And it brought us to this. Judge.
Yes?
Prosecution requests that the witness be excused.
please. I'm afraid I must honor the prosecution's request. There is indeed a question of the witness's credibility. But if Lamoureux can't testify, then we don't have a chance of proving Maki's innocence. This cross-examination is over, Prosecutor Gavin. You may continue making your case.
Danke. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. I would like to hear from frontline detective.
Objection!
Wait, let me hear Lamoureux's testimony one last time. But the cross-examination is already over. Until such a time as a need arises, this witness may leave to stand.
I'm sorry I could not be of more assistance. At last, back to the real trial. Ready, Ed Forehead?
I hope I didn't just miss my only chance.
Fraulein Detective, how far have we gotten until we were so rudely interrupted?
Don't ask me.
I dislike saying the same thing twice, and I never repeat the song for an encore.
If you would, Miss Sky.
Oof. I believe I was saying that the only way Mrs. Killer could have escaped was through that air vent in the ceiling.
Ah, yes, there was only one door in the room. And a witness, you, was standing in front of it.
That air vent isn't very big, see? Can't let people passing it through.
I certainly would have a different time.
Sure would. Not that you would have been there in the first place. Remember, the whole backstage area was off limits to people not involved with the concert. The only one who meets the conditions for a killer is the defendant. A virtuoso performance. I could have put it better myself.
She does state a clear case. Though, reading the report, something caught my eye.
Oh, what's that?
The circumstances of the defendant's arrest.
The circumstances? Again? Hey, that's right, Apollo. Remember when we found Maki? That was bizarre.
She's right. Why did Mr. Lettuce's body disappear from the room? And end up on top of that stage tower? Holding a guitar, no less.
A perspective observation, Judge.
Thanks. It was kind of an accident, really. But you work in this job long enough, you get a nose for things.
The judge sure seems pleased with himself. Very good, Fraulein Detective. Perhaps you can tie it all together for us. Why was the body moved? And how does that lead us to the killer? I believe Maki stole the body because of some lyrics. He moved the body to match Lamoureux's song. No one in this country had a motive to kill the victim. And Maki practically left his signature at the scene. All of this evidence clearly points to the defendant. Lamoureux's song? Yes, the guitar Serenade. You noticed its code too, did you not?
Its code?
All the events that day followed the lyrics to our song. First, the keys my heart held onto so tightly were stolen. Then Prosecutor Gavin's guitar burst into flames on stage. Mr. Lettuce's life was taken by a bullet. The rest hardly needs explanation. Guitar to guitar, up together to the sky.
That's mad. It's like a story out of some fairy tale.
I admit I'd forgotten about the song, but there it is now, waiting for me, the grand finale, as it were. Hey, you know I was the one who first noticed that.
I've heard of jumping rope to songs and counting to songs. But killing?
It's a wild word out there, Judge.
Very well. We've heard one song and dance, let's get on to the next, the cross-examination. Not so sure I'm going to be doing much singing.
What do you mean by his signature? The bullet holes in the wall, of course.
The bullet holes?
The revolver was fired twice. One shot missed and left a hole in the wall.
And that means what exactly?
That dressing room isn't exactly spacious. Picture the shooter facing off with the victim in there. They can't have been more than 5 feet apart. It would be difficult, almost impossible to miss at that range.
Difficult to miss, you say?
Very. Assuming the shooter could properly aim.
No, you can't be serious.
Maki, he can't see. That's why he missed? It's the only explanation that makes sense. He used sound and other senses to fire the gun. Poorly. That reminds me. The monitor in the room was blaring at the time, yeah? Hardly ideal conditions for tracking by sound.
A blind shooter. No wonder he missed. I knew those bullet holes would come back to haunt me. Think, Justice. What do I do now? Sure, there are bullet holes left in the wall. But that doesn't prove the shooter couldn't see.
Oh, how so?
Well, there could have been a struggle with the victim. That's certainly possible. And it might have been the revolver's fault. The revolver? The revolver was a very large caliber, correct? If the shooter wasn't used to firing such a large weapon, why, it could dislocate their shoulder. Exactly. The defendant, Makido Bai, is, as you can see, tiny. It's not so hard to picture him firing the gun and missing entirely. The kickback alone would throw off his aim. A convincing argument, to be sure.
Ha! Take that, smoke prosecution. Apollo. Huh? What? That bit about Maki being tiny and the gun throwing off his aim. Are you kind of, admitting that he did it? Oh. It does not matter why he missed. What matters is that the shooter was, without a doubt, the defendant. Even the defense seems to agree on that point. Cripes. I really put my foot in it this time. But let's get the facts of the matter on the record. If you would, Fraulein Detective.
Very well. The witness will add this to our testimony.
Right. From the state of the crime scene, I conclude the shooter was blind.
Objection!
The prosecution holds that the shooter couldn't see. A scientific conclusion based on thorough examination of the crime scene, yes. Apparently not thorough enough. I have a certain piece of evidence that completely overturns your claim. Well, what?
This is that evidence. A photograph of the crime scene.
I don't care much for the smirk prosecution Gavin's face, but this is no time to think twice. Time to press on. Yes, Your Honor, the crime scene. There is something in here that decisively contradicts the prosecution's point. Then perhaps you'd best show us this something. Get your finger out of the breeze and put it to good use, yeah?
Very well. Show us what you're talking about, Mr. Justice. The contradiction at the scene of the crime is... Take that!
The contradiction is right here. The smeared bloodstains.
I thought it was just my blurry vision. But it really was blurry. The way the victim's hand is raised above his head. Much like a gesture I have seen many times in this court.
It's almost as if you wrote something. Aha, I get it. At least I think I get it. Get what, Fraulein? When Mr. Latouche was shot, he tried to write something. And what would he write but the shooter's name? And what would he write it in but his own blood? Pretty good, huh?
Thanks for making my point for me.
Yes, in fact, that's what I think happened here.
That does seem to be a distinct possibility.
The victim wrote the killer's name. It's certainly a logical conclusion. Drat, I just wish it wasn't all rubbed out like that.
Of course rubbed out. Why, if I were a killer, I certainly wouldn't want to leave my own name behind.
Neither would I. No one has anything else to say?
About what?
So, the prosecutor accepts this. You agree this was the victim making an attempt to record the name of the killer? And that the killer tried to rub the name out? What's your point? What's my point? Let me ask you this. How did the killer know the victim was writing their name? Well, Mr. Latouche was writing something in blood. Once the killer saw what it was... Wait.
Once he saw what it was.
But what did you just testify about the shooter? I said they were blind. Ah! Yet the crime scene itself contradicts that. The killer had to have been able to see. Why would they rub out the name in blood otherwise? May I remind the court that the defendant Makito Bai is blind. He couldn't have been the shooter. Impossible! Order! Prosecutor Gavin, please explain to me what all this means. I mean, looking at this photo, it seems quite clear that the shooter could see. Yet up until now, it seems I owe the court an apology. Huh? The Gaviners are a band with law enforcement ties. Here, the murder occurred during our concert. Apparently, this caused some confusion over jurisdiction. As a result, some reports were not filed in an entirely timely manner. I'm not sure I like the vibe I'm getting here. Hey, Apollo, look at him. Why is Prosecutor Gavin all relaxed and smiling like that? Like he knows something we don't, and he's about to tell us. I've got an idea. Let's rock with these documents. But before that, I have a question for the Fraulein detective, if I may. Well, what? Tell me, why do you think that Makito Bai is blind? Huh? What did he say? What are you saying? Of course he's blind. Of course. He's the blind pianist, right? So he's... Doesn't Lammeror lead him around by the hand all the time? No way. I have a report here on the defendant, Makito Bai. According to this, Makito Bai can see perfectly well. What? His blindness was merely a publicity ploy by those clever Virginians. He can see quite well. But you said... What did I say exactly? Forehead, not once in the course of this trial have I claimed the defendant was blind. The only one who did was Fraulein Detective. But that's a significant fact, yes. Consider, Makito Bai sees, and he was the only one who could have fled through the air vent. I see no problems with this. But what about the bullet holes in the wall? Yes, the bullet holes. I believe Forehead neatly explained those for us. He didn't miss because he couldn't see. It was the kickback from the .45 caliber revolver. A simple accident, in other words. How's that? I'm afraid your objection is thrown off for brighter skies. This is where the real fun begins, Forehead. Yeah! I knew you didn't have what it took. You jerk. Just what was I in here for? Comic relief? Yeah, apologize. Oh, sorry. That's no way to apologize. He's angry at the Trucy now. Look out. If we can please end the bickering now. Whatever, I'm not leaving. I can't leave like this. I'll come up with some clue to solving this case if it kills me. But your testimony has already given us enough to convict the defendant. Ugh, don't say that. What? This bloodstain. The criminal tried to wipe it off, right? That seems to be what happened, yes. We might be able to find out what was really written here. Really? You can do that? That's right. With this. It's called luminol. Maybe you know of it. It's a chemical that reacts to blood. Ah, yes. Have we done those tests yet? Here's what I'm going to tell you. The bloodstains covered a section of the carpet. In order to perform blood tests, that section was removed and submitted. Perhaps you should request it here in court now. Right. Go for it, Apollo. Huh? I have to do the test. You just have to spray the luminol on it. Simple. A chemical that reacts to blood. I've heard of this somewhere. Yes, I believe an analysis is called for. Have at it. Right, ready? It's easy as pie. Just press A to spray an area. Here, give it a try. The eyes of the entire court are focused on me. Apollo, your hand's shaking. Ugh. Let's do this. Wow, it really works. This must be the power of science. It says IPXS314206. Is that the killer's name?
Maybe it is.
If the killer's a robot, aha, I have it. So what is it? I thought those letters IPXX looked familiar. This is an Interpol ID number. Interpol? You mean the International Police Agency? Yes, most undercover agents working to solve international crimes. But why would he write that number? Why would Mr. Latus even know a number like that? Good show, Frown Detective. Rock on. Huh? Your Honor, we can verify this number immediately. Darian, are you there? Come up to the witness stand. Darian, you heard what we need. Go check into this Interpol ID number. Sure thing. Give me 30 minutes. Nah, give me 27.
I'm not sure what to think of all this. The prosecution's case is airtight, or so it seems, yet if this number is really that of an Interpol agent...
Oh, wait, I know. What if Maki Tobai is really an undercover Interpol agent? That would be a possibility.
A possibility, yes. And one that would mark him as the killer for certain.
Why did Latus know an Interpol ID number? That's what I want to know. Well, we have some time while we await Darian's report. Let's work on unraveling another mystery, shall we? A curious mystery concerning Maki Tobai.
What are you talking about?
Fraulein Detective, please accept my apologies. I received word that the defendant could, in fact, see just before the trial began. It seemed too much of a bother to tell you. You had me until that last bit. Does this not raise a rather straightforward question? Well, sure. Why did Maki pretend he couldn't see? Exactly. It makes little sense. What do you think, Ed Forehead?
Huh? Me?
Maki Tobai pretended he was blind. Do you know why? How could he know? Wait, Prosecutor Gavin knows why, doesn't he?
He's known from the start of the trial. He's been leading us on the whole time.
Something wrong? Do you think perhaps this is all some kind of a game? Know that the moment I heard that report, I knew why.
I suppose people who have sold over 1 million records really are something else.
What does that have to do with anything? There was a reason why Maki Tobai pretended to be blind, but it wasn't for his own sake. Getting the picture now?
It wasn't for himself. Well, Mr. Justice, can you present evidence that shows us why the defendant had to feign blindness?
Maki had no reason to pretend he couldn't see. Which means, no, it couldn't be. Show it for him. It seems you've thought of something. Ugh, why can't I figure these things out on my own? I haven't taken my cues from this guy. Very well, look at this. This is why he was pretending he couldn't see.
Take that! That is Lamiroar?
Lamiroar and Maki Tobai. Recall their relationship. In particular, their unique arrangement over the years before visiting our country. Lamiroar and her pianist. They would always walk together, she leading him by the hand. Even when they got on stage, she would lead him to the piano. She would walk all the way over there with him. That's right, because he was blind. She led him at all times, never letting him go.
All times.
Yet, we've just learned something that makes their arrangement peculiar indeed. Maki could see. Why did they have to keep this up this whole time?
Well, wasn't part of their performance?
I think there's a simpler explanation. Maki did not need to be led by the hand at all. That can only mean one thing. Really? Really, it was all the other way around. The one who needed to be left by the hand was Lamiroar!
Well, watch this. So you mean to say that Lamiroar is, she's...
Yes, Your Honor. Lamiroar is blind. What?
Order, order, order. This is crazy. Prosecutor Gavin?
Is it?
Please shed some sanity on this madness. The defense has made an outrageous claim.
The only thing outrageous I see about the defense is his vast forehead. Yet I see it is not vast in vain. This time, he's quite correct.
But that makes no sense.
Yeah, wasn't she supposed to be the landscape painter in sound or something? Well, since we have her here, why not ask Lamberor herself? I believe she is still in the witness waiting room. Apollo, what does this mean for our case? Don't ask me. I had no idea she couldn't see. I hadn't even imagined it until now. Bailiff, bring in Lamberor. Lamberor, it pains me deeply to call you before us again in this way, and yet I must. Please, do not be concerned on my behalf. Those eyes. She really can't see, really? Is it true? How funny it is that a tiny line born in the Virginian countryside would one day grow to entangle the entire world.
So you are.
Yes, as I mentioned before, I have no memory of the time before I became Lamberor. Know too that my memories begin in darkness. The world of light has no meaning for Lamberor.
I see.
You may recall me saying something toward the beginning of this trial, Airfrey. What's that? I believe I said it was unfortunate this crime had no direct witnesses. Now, Lamberor, I must ask you to stand once more. Will you testify to the court about your eyes? Of course. It was never my intent to deceive any of you. May I begin, Your Honor?
Yes, of course. Though I admit I'm a little lost here.
I think we're all a bit lost here, Your Honor. I have no memory of the light. I debuted in a world of darkness and sound. My producer came up with my PR line before he knew this. So silly as it may sound, I had to pretend I could see. Everyone on my staff knew, of course, but no others.
But this is a murder trial.
I apologize. It was part of my contract, you see. I was to keep my blindness a secret no matter what. Music is everything for me. I never imagined something like this would...
She told us the truth in the beginning.
When she said she saw nothing.
Very well. Does the defense have anything to add?
I'd like to cross-examine. But what is there left to ask?
There was one thing in her testimony that bothered me.
Perhaps it is best we let you get it out of your system. Someday you'll come to understand the importance of thinking for yourself.
Very well. The defense may proceed. However, be aware this court will not tolerate any questions deemed too stressful to the witness.
Okay. There's only one part that bothered me. Just let me ask about that and I'll be happy. When you say your staff, do you include Mr. Latouche? Of course. He was my manager. So he knew, and that's what's been bugging me.
Something the matter, Mr. Justice?
I believe I know what is bothering you. You were thinking of when you discovered the body, yes? Is he right, Apollo? Yes, I was. He's alive! Mr. Latouche, can you hear me? Cold. So cold. Witness. You're cold. Don't worry. You're going to be fine. Help is on the way. Can't see. Hang in there, Mr. Latouche. Tell me, who was the witness? The witness is Siren. Mr. Latouche told me to ask the witness, and he named you. Why would he do that? He knew you were blind. I don't know. What did I just say? You need to learn to think for yourself. Meaning what? There is no mystery here if you recall everything he said. Think of his last words once more.
The witness Siren. We've heard them many times. Along with a little play acting by our defense.
I remember them well myself, but that statement is not to which I refer. I mean what he said before that. Before? What came before that? Ah! That's right. He tried to tell you. When he said can't see, he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about the witness.
I see.
Too bad the defense did not. Well, Air Forehead, try relaxing and looking at the facts first. Ugh.
Order.
Recall Lamirora's earlier testimony. I was on my way from the stage to the backstage exit. There were 2 shots. I couldn't do anything to stop it.
But she couldn't have heard those gunshots. I thought we proved that.
That is not the most important point here. The moment he was shot, Mr. Latouche witnessed her through that window. Why else would he have named her as the witness? Ah, but I really did hear them. 2 gunshots, and the man's voice. Unfortunately, such a thing was impossible. The window was closed. We have already run a simulation, of course. But it was so clear. If I heard that voice again, I would know it in an instant.
Your Honor, what is it, bailiff? Can't you see we're in session here?
We have the results back from the investigation.
The investigation?
Ah, the Interpol number that Mr. Latouche left us.
Well, let's hear it. We will continue this cross-examination afterward. Detective Crescent, your report, please.
I asked Interpol about that number. I'm sure you'll find their answer intriguing. Quick work is always there.
Well, tell us about the number. Is the defendant a secret agent?
IPXX 314206. The agent registered under this number was Romain Latouche. What? Our undercover Interpol agent was Mr. Latouche himself. He was apparently in the middle of an operation. So when he wrote those letters, he was trying to tell us his own identity. And a cautious killer tried to wipe them away. Mr. Latouche was an undercover Interpol agent, so him being Lamirora's manager was just a cover, most likely. There's one other important detail I found. Well, out with it. It concerns that 45 caliber revolver, the murder weapon. Apparently it belonged to Romain Latouche. He had an Interpol permit to carry firearms, and the registration number on the revolver matched. So the victim was killed with his own weapon, which makes sense. It's hard to imagine someone who wasn't an Interpol agent with such a large revolver. So the victim was an Interpol agent on an undercover op. I wonder how that ties into everything. It's gotta tie in somehow, you think? Yeah, somehow.
Thanks for looking into that for us, Detective Crescent. It's a great help.
Oh, no problem at all, Your Honor. I'll be heading out. Wait.
Lamiror, is something the matter?
That voice just now. Darien? Mr. Darien, is it? It was him. I am sure of it.
It was him?
You aren't saying... That voice I heard, talking to Mr. Latouche, when I heard the gunshots fired. It was him. It was Mr. Darien.
Is this some kind of a joke? What?
No way.
The courtroom fell into such a chaotic state the trial had to be suspended temporarily. I'd never seen that happen before. Of course, it's not every day that you get an accusation like that one. Lammermoor fingering Darien Crescent. Not only is he a guitarist, he's a detective. Could it really have been his voice Lammermoor heard? Things were changing fast, and frankly, I wasn't sure I could keep up with it.
Hey, no imping out now, Apollo.